remember the first time the fire spoke. It was not with words. I did not yet know what words were, but with sound and light that moved like a living thing. I had seen fire before, from afar, when the sky struck the trees and made them scream. But this was different. This was small. This was close. This was ours. It began with a storm that broke the forest. The sky roared and spat white light that split a great tree in half. For a while, the tree burned, and we stayed away, the way all things with sense do. The air was hot, and the smell was thick, of sap, of smoke, of something dying. But when the rain came, the fire did not vanish. It clung to a fallen branch under the dry rock, a red thing breathing slow, waiting. I was the first to see it. The others had gone to hide. I stayed. I crouched and watched. It pulsed like an animal's chest. Bright, dim, bright again. I thought it might be sleeping. I thought it might wake and bite. I took a stick, long and thin, and touched it. The light climbed onto the stick. My heart pounded. I dropped it. It rolled, and the grass hissed. I thought I had killed the earth. But then I saw how it moved, how it reached, how it ate. I thought the light came from the sky. I thought it wanted to eat the trees. But then I saw it move with the wind, and I knew it was alive. It made no sound but the sound of hunger, the crack, the hiss, the breath. I sat beside it, far enough that my skin did not sting. It warmed my hands. My fear did not leave, but it changed. It became something else. Curiosity. I waited for it to die. It did not. It only shrank, curled into itself, glowing in the dark. I found another branch, dry this time. I pushed it toward the small red thing. The light woke again, brighter, reaching higher. It wanted food. It wanted dry wood, not wet. It hated the rain and loved the wind. It slept when I left it alone, and woke when I fed it again. I did not know then that I was learning. I only knew that I could make something live that was not flesh. When the night came, I stayed beside it. The cold could not touch me. The beast did not come near. The dark, the great dark that had always owned the night, stopped at the edge of the fire's glow. I could see the ground, my hands, my breath. I could see the world even after the sun was gone. The others came, slowly, afraid. They whispered my name as if it might break the light. I told them to come closer. One by one they did. Their faces glowed orange, their eyes wide. They looked like new people, not made of fear, but of wonder. That night, for the first time, we did not sleep in silence. We spoke. At first, it was only small sounds, laughter, whispers, words we did not often use. But as the fire danced, we began to talk about it, where it came from, why it stayed, what it wanted. We had no answers, but the questions felt new. They were born from the light. And as the light flickered, it made shapes on the cave wall, long shadows that moved like beasts, like people, like ghosts. We watched them, and we began to speak to them. We gave them names. We told each other what they looked like, the hunter, the prey, the spirit that lives in the smoke. We did not know it then, but that was the first story. I remember how the children laughed when the shadows danced. I remember how the old ones leaned forward, their faces soft in the glow. The fire made us see more than what was there. It made us imagine. I think now that the light from the sky gave us more than warmth. It gave us memory. It gave us the wish to speak. When the flames rose high, the shadows grew long. When the flames fell low, the darkness crept back in. We learned to feed the fire, not just to live, but to keep the light alive. And with it, our voices. That night, I watched the red glow on the faces around me. I saw how each flame made every face different. Each face became a new thing, brave, scared, proud, soft. The fire showed us who we were. And when the last flame turned to ash, I felt something I had never felt before. Loss. Not hunger, not cold, something deeper. The loss of light, the loss of the sound it made. I tried to make it again. I took stones and hit them. Sparks jumped, small and fast. I fed them dry grass, but they died too soon. I tried again. I failed again. But in the failing, I saw what the light wanted, to breathe. I blew on the sparks. They grew. The first breath I ever gave that was not for myself was for the fire. And when it woke again, I laughed. That laugh echoed through the cave, through the night. The others came running, thinking I had gone mad. But when they saw the flame return, they fell silent. We sat around it again, and for the second time, the night belonged to us. We watched the light move, and the shadows move with it. Someone pointed to the wall and said, "It looks like the great beast." We all looked. It did. The shadow moved as if the beast were alive again. Then another spoke. "It hunts. It runs." And I said, "No, it flees." The shadow changed again, and we all laughed. We were not just seeing, we were telling. It was the first time we made something that was not real, but still true. That night, I understood that fire did not only give warmth. It gave vision, not of the eyes, but of the mind. We were no longer silent animals hiding from the dark. We were people, sitting before the first mirror in history, a mirror of light and movement. And in that mirror, we saw ourselves for the first time. Before the fire came, our nights were empty things. When the sun died, so did the world. Everything we could not touch disappeared. The ground, the trees, even our own faces. We spoke little, for our words fell into darkness and did not return. The dark was not just absence, it was alive. It had eyes, it had sound, it had hunger. We heard it every night, the call of beasts, the rustle of scales, the soft growl of things that wanted what we had. We never saw them, but we felt them. They were everywhere, waiting for our steps to slow, for our breath to fade. So we learned to be silent, to hide, to sleep pressed together for warmth, our bodies tangled under the skins of animals. The smell of old fur was comfort. The weight of another's breath was safety. We lived by the day and died by the night. Our world was ruled by cold and distance. Food was always far and always moving. The beasts were faster, stronger. They had teeth we could not match and skins too thick for our stones. We hunted the small ones, the ones too slow to run or too young to fear. When we ate, we tore the meat raw. We did not know any other way. The blood made our fingers slick, our mouths red. The taste was sharp, alive. But it did not last. It grew sour, turned to sickness if we kept it. We buried what we could not finish, and sometimes we dug it up again when hunger returned. The cold did not wait for permission. It came when it pleased, and it never left quickly. When the wind came from the mountains, it carried death in it. We would wrap ourselves tighter, crawl deeper into caves, and hope the morning would come before our hearts slowed too much. We did not know why the sun left each night, only that it returned. We thought maybe it was a beast too, one that hunted the dark and grew tired. The old ones said if we looked at it too long, it would take our sight in anger. We listened to the sky the way we listened to the forest. It spoke in ways we could not name, in thunder, in rain, in wind. the sky cried, the rivers filled. When it screamed, the trees fell. When it was silent, we knew the world was watching us. We did not know why the sky cried water, or why the beasts feared the smell of smoke. We only knew what kept us alive. The smell of smoke was rare then. Sometimes, after storms, we found the blackened trees and the strange ashes that covered the ground. We avoided those places. The air there was heavy. It made our chests ache. The birds did not return, and the soil tasted bitter. But even then, I remember staring at the black marks on the trees, the streaks where light had eaten wood. I remember thinking it looked like something had drawn on the world, like the sky had left a message no one could read. We lived by signs. We read the world in smells and sounds. We did not count time. We felt it, in the seasons, in the weight of hunger, in the length of the day's light. There was no word for year, only the time when fruit came, when the beasts grew thin, when the snow fell, when it left. We carried what we owned on our backs, stones for cutting, bones for digging, skins for warmth. We had no word for home, only for shelter. When the wind shifted, we moved. When the beasts moved, we followed. The world gave nothing for free. Every bite, every step, every breath had a cost. We buried our dead not from love, but from fear. The smell brought scavengers, and the sight made the young ones tremble. Still, I remember looking at the face of one who had died and feeling something I could not name, the need to remember. We marked the ground with stones, not to keep him safe, but so we would not forget where he lay. That was the first kind of story, a story without words, only stones. We knew nothing of before. We only knew now. When I think back, I understand that we were not stupid. We were not blind. We were patient. The world was too big for questions and too dangerous for answers. But sometimes, when the night was quiet and the wind was gentle, I would look at the stars, the countless lights that hung above. They moved slow, like thoughts too big for my head. I wondered what they were. I thought maybe they were the fires of the dead, burning in the sky to light their way. I thought maybe one day I would join them. We feared the dark, but we loved the light. Even the small kind, the glow of eyes, the white of bone, the reflection of moon on water. Anything that shone was magic. So when I first saw the fire up close, when it did not burn the world, but stayed in my hands, it felt like stealing a piece of the stars. Before that, the only light we had was the sun by day and the moon by night. Both belonged to the sky. We could not touch them. They did not care for us. But the fire came down. It lived where we lived. It spoke where we could hear. Before it, our mouths spoke only to warn or to call. We had no reason to tell, to imagine, to dream aloud. What use was a story in a world where tomorrow was not promised? But when the fire came, the nights grew long again, not in fear, but in light. We stayed awake because the warmth was good, and because the darkness outside the light no longer scared us. We looked at each other, and we began to speak of things we could not see. We spoke of beasts, of hunts, of dreams. We spoke of the shapes on the cave wall. We spoke of what the fire showed and what it hid. It made the silence smaller, and our minds larger. We did not yet know that this was the beginning of remembering, that every word we spoke by the light would one day become something greater than ourselves. But I remember the first time I said something that was not true, not a lie, but something imagined. I pointed to the flame and said, "It is the sky's child." The others nodded, and in that moment, I realized something powerful. A story did not have to be real to make sense. It only had to be believed. That was the world before the story. Dark, cold, silent. The world before thought became fire. When I first brought the fire to my people, I did not yet understand what I was carrying. I thought it was only warmth. Something to keep the cold away. Something to light our nights. But as I learned to keep it alive, I began to see what it truly was. Fire was not only a tool, it was a teacher. It began small. I had kept one spark hidden under a hollow stone, wrapped in dry moss and ash. It slept for days, a faint red eye under grey dust. When I breathed on it, it blinked awake. I learned that fire breathes too. Too little air, and it suffocates. Too much, and it leaps wild. I learned that it needed food, dry wood, not wet. That it loved the wind but feared the rain. That it ate fast and left bones of black dust behind. And as I fed it, it began to feed me. Not with food, but with understanding. When we hunted, I brought it with us. At night, when we stopped, I gave it life again. The beast did not come close. Their eyes glowed red from afar, but they stayed back. The fire protected us more surely than any spear. The old ones said it was alive, a spirit that walked with us. The young ones said it was mine, that I had tamed it. But I knew better. You do not tame what can eat the world. You learn its hunger. You listen. The more I watched it, the more I saw it move like we do, breathing, feeding, sleeping. I began to think it was not just alive, but aware. It seemed to watch us, to listen when we spoke. At night, when the fire burned low, we would gather close. We told each other what we had seen that day, how the hunt went, where the water lay, which trees hid fruit. But then something strange began to happen. We started to tell what had not happened. One night, I took a stick and drew shapes in the dust beside the fire. A line for a river, a curve for the hunt, dots for the beasts. The others leaned close, their faces red from the glow. I pointed and said, "Here, the great deer fell." A child asked, "Where is the deer now?" I smiled and said, "Here," and I moved my hand through the air, showing its shape. They laughed, not because it was funny, but because they saw it too. In the shadow my hand made, they saw the deer. The fire gave us shadows, and the shadows gave us pictures. Soon we began to tell the hunt before it happened, what we hoped to see, how we would kill, how we would return. And when the day came, and it happened just as we had said, we looked at each other in wonder. We thought the fire made it true. Maybe it did. It was as if the fire wanted us to imagine, to create with our mouths what did not yet exist with our hands. Sometimes, when the flames danced, we saw shapes in them, beasts running, trees swaying, faces rising and falling. We spoke of them, gave them names. The small ones asked questions. What is that shape? Why does it move like that? Who is it? And I found myself answering with things I did not know I knew. The fire remembers, I said once. It shows what it has eaten, the trees it burned, the beasts that ran. They nodded, eyes wide. I did not mean to teach, but they learned anyway. The firelight made us dream while awake. We began to talk of things beyond the hunt. What happens when we die? Where do the stars go when the clouds come? Why do some beasts fear us and others do not? Before fire, such questions were useless. Now, they felt like warmth, something that filled the silence. When the wind howled outside and the rain beat on the cave mouth, we no longer waited in fear. We sat around the fire, talking, shaping our thoughts like we shaped our stones, chipping away at them until they fit. And when the youngest fell asleep, we told stories. Not lessons, not plans, stories. We spoke of the first fire, how it fell from the sky like a wounded bird, how it landed on a tree and hid there waiting for someone to find it, how it gave its warmth to us, asking only that we feed it wood and respect. Every story we told was different, but the fire listened to them all. I noticed how the light played on the walls, how it made the shapes move even when we were still. I began to draw on the stone, lines of animals, people, hunts. When the fire flickered, they seemed to come alive. The others gasped, and I realized something. The fire made the drawings move, but our eyes made them live. We had learned not just to see, but to imagine. I did not have a word for imagination. I only knew that I could close my eyes and still see. I could walk in my mind where my feet could not go. The firelight gave us that. It was as if the warmth melted something inside our heads that had been frozen. Suddenly, thought flowed like water. Memory became more than survival. It became meaning. I found myself telling the young ones about the hunt not as it happened, but as it felt. The fear, the chase, the kill. I used my hands, my voice, my breath. They listened not to the facts, but to the feeling. And when they smiled, I knew they understood. That was when I realized the fire did not just feed on wood. It fed on attention, on eyes, on ears, on minds. It was alive, but it lived through us. We gave it stories, and it gave them back as light. One night, when everyone had fallen asleep and only embers glowed, I spoke softly to it. "You make us remember," I said. "You make us see what is not here." The embers cracked once like a whisper. I sat there for a long time, staring into its heart, and thought, maybe it is not the fire that remembers. Maybe it is us, learning how to. That thought frightened me, because if we could remember, then we could also forget. And forgetting, I realized, would be worse than death. Now I am old. My hands shake when I lift wood. My eyes blur when I stare too long at the flame. But I still sit here, as I did when I was young, watching the fire speak. It has never stopped speaking. We have only learned how to listen. The young ones sit across from me now. Their faces glow orange in the light, and their eyes shine the way mine once did. They ask questions, not about how to make fire, but about what the stories mean. Why do the stars move? Where do dreams come from? Why does the fire never sleep? And I smile. I tell them what I know and what I don't. Because the fire taught me something greater than warmth or fear. It taught me how to say I don't know and not be afraid of it. Once, before the fire, silence was the only truth. Now, silence waits for us to fill it. I remember when stories were only about what we could see, beasts, hunts, storms. But as time passed, our words stretched further. We began to tell of things that never happened but felt true. The first man made from dust, the spirit that hides in thunder, the mother who placed stars in the sky to guide her lost children home. We do not tell them because we believe them. We tell them because they make us see. The children laugh when I tell them the story of the fire's birth, how I first held it, trembling, how it nearly ate my hand. They laugh not because it is funny, but because it is theirs now. The story belongs to them, and through them, it will keep burning. The fire has given us many things: cooked food, warm nights, sharp tools, strong bonds, but the greatest thing it gave was the space between us. Before fire, we sat in darkness and waited for day. After fire, we sat in light and waited for meaning. I think now that every story is a small fire. It begins with a spark, a sound, a memory, a thought. And if you feed it, it grows. If you share it, it spreads. When one of us dies, the fire still remembers. It holds their face in its light, their voice in its crackle. It is not magic, not spirit, just the echo of everything we have said before. Sometimes I wonder what we would be without it. Would we still be crouched in the dark, afraid of what we cannot see? Would we still hunt and eat and sleep without thought? Would we still look at the stars and see nothing but cold? I do not think so. The fire changed us. It gave us the gift of seeing more than what is. It made us human. When I stare into it, I still see shapes. I see my father, gone long ago, sitting on the other side, silent. I see the great beasts we hunted, their shadows running along the wall. I see my own younger self, afraid, curious, reaching for the flame. The fire remembers us better than we remember ourselves. And when the night is long and the wind is cruel, I tell the children, look closely. The fire is watching. They giggle, but they do. They lean closer, eyes wide, faces glowing. And soon they begin to speak. Their own stories, their own small worlds. A boy says the flame is a bird that wants to fly but cannot. A girl says it is the sun's child, trapped under stone. Another whispers that it is the voice of the ancestors, still speaking through smoke. They are all wrong and all right, because what matters is not what the fire is, but what it makes us see. It makes us turn our thoughts into shape, our fears into meaning, our silence into song. And as they speak, I see their shadows on the wall, moving, alive, full of life that will outlast mine. We once feared shadows. Now we make them dance. Sometimes I think that is what being human means. Taking what we fear and giving it a name. Taking what we cannot touch and turning it into sound. Before fire, we feared the dark. After fire, we feared ourselves. For we had learned to imagine, to dream, to remember. The fire taught us to create, and creation made us powerful and dangerous. We could build warmth, and we could make war. We could tell stories that gave hope, and stories that brought fear. But I do not think the fire meant harm. It only showed us what was already inside us, the same hunger, the same light. Now, as the flames rise and fall, I feel both small and infinite. The sparks fly upward into the night, fading into the same stars that once looked down on me before I knew their names. Maybe they are not so far away, those fires in the sky. Maybe they are the same. Maybe every story we tell here is a reflection of the ones written above. I do not know. But I think this. The firelight did not just give us warmth. It gave us the mirror of our own minds. It showed us that what we see can live inside us, and what lives inside us can shape the world. Perhaps the fire was not stolen. Perhaps it had been waiting for someone to notice. And maybe, just maybe, every story since then has been the same story told again and again. The story of how we saw the first light and learned to keep it alive.